Well, we are in week 4, the final week of the God of the Underdogs series. And if you've been around for the last few weeks, you've enjoyed it. And if not, I do kind of look like him. Let me tell you a story, okay? I hear the chuckles. I know what's behind me. It's okay. If you're joining us online, thank you for joining us. My name is Dave, and I officially kind of look like Chris Daughtry, and it's okay. It's fine. I'll own it. It's all good. I played a game with somebody a couple of weeks ago who thought it would be really funny to play the game of let's see who had or has had the most or coolest celebrity encounters, which is a dangerous game to play with me. Because for the last 20-some years, I've worked just on the side in live entertainment production, and I've gotten to work with a lot of celebrities. And so that, like this whole idea, like when you stand in front of a celebrity and you have the eyes drop and the jaws drop, and it's like, oh my goodness, yeah, that is long gone on me, long gone. I have been in front of many people who are worth many, many more millions than myself. And by that, I mean I don't have a million, and they do, lots of them. And there's a certain point where you stand in front of those people, and people get really like, oh my goodness, it's this person. I saw them on TV, or I've listened to music my whole life, or whatever it may be. And I'm just like, hey, you ready for the show? Okay, cool, let's go. You know, and that's just how it is. I grew up in the performing arts world. My parents are both educators and musicians, and I grew up performing. I grew up watching shows. I grew up doing that sort of thing, and then being behind the scenes afterwards and exploring that world, and that's kind of led me to just a side opportunity I have now to go help do that and to be a part of that on the side, which fills my little creative bucket and keeps me going and is really fun just to do on the side. But I remember there was one moment, and I put this up here for a reason, a couple summers ago where Chris Daughtry was out on stage, and I am watching him warm up and helping make sure things are ready, and one of my buddies leans over and he's like, dude, he looks just like you. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I mean, I get that he's tall and handsome and bald and beautiful beard going on. Like, yeah, okay, I get it. You know, and then we turned and looked, and his lead guitar player who was there with him for the night was this also tall, beautiful, bald man with stubbly face. And I'm like, okay, hold on. And so I go out on stage and I go to talk to these guys for a few minutes. And while I'm there, my buddy takes this picture of the three of us there. And I'm like, I should have saved this picture because it would be proof that I once performed with Daughtry, which I have not ever done. I just helped put their show on for them. But I wanted to find that picture and show it, and I couldn't find it. And so you'll have to just take my word for it or not. Your choice. Your choice. But I've been in front of many people who you walk in front of them, or they walk down the hallway or whatever, and people just you see them take steps back and their eyes get big, and you're like, oh my goodness. And some of them are the nicest people in the world, and some of them are complete divas and live up to the name. Like, you don't want to see them ever again, and that's okay. And then there's some where it's just really funny interaction. Some of them want to talk and want to be really personable with everybody who's around. Some of them, not at all. Like, just leave me be, let me do my thing, and I'm going to go, and we're going to never see each other again, and it'll be fine. And some of them, I'm okay with that. Others, it'd be fun to talk to. But I remember there was one moment, I've shared this story a few years ago if you were around, where I'm sitting backstage and I'm getting stuff ready for a show, and Jay Leno is performing that night. And Jay Leno comes up and he steps into the office, and just this big California glow, personality larger than life. He's wearing the deepest cut V I've ever seen. I didn't know deep Vs could go down to your belly button, but they can. Also didn't know Jay Leno should ever wear that, and I still hold by the statement he shouldn't. But he's there and he's talking, and he leans in when he talks. He's a big ball of energy, right? And he's talking, and I can't, he is 3 feet from my face with his chest hair. I have never seen so much chest hair on a man, ever. And here it is, and he's talking, and I'm pretty sure it's the chest hair just yapping back and forth, because that's all I'm seeing. I'm hearing a voice, but all I'm seeing is this waving amber waves of grain on his chest of hair. That was a weird analogy. I don't know where that came from. But that's what I saw. And he's talking, and I'm like, what is going on? It was the funniest interaction. He left, and I lost it. And I will never forget the image I saw that day of chest hair talking to me in the face of Jay Leno. But there it was. And then there's other moments where you walk by some celebrities who are just so stuck up and so full of themselves that you don't want to be near them. And then there's others, like I had an experience talking with Adam Sandler where I don't think he even knows he's a celebrity. I don't think he has any understanding that people know who he is. He was just wearing his basketball shorts, living his best life, and Okay, do you know who you are, sir? Like, do you know? I mean, never mind. He knows. But there are all these different things. What hit me one day is there are so many opportunities or so many experiences where people see these people who are larger than life, people who they've seen on TV, people who they've seen perform on a stage, people who they've seen do these things that have made them famous for one reason or another, and we look at them very differently. Like they have achieved a level of something, either status or perfection or some notoriety that we will never achieve. And we start, like I can see it as I see people interact with them, where we start separating ourselves out, where there's them and then there's me. There's people who have achieved something and then there's me. And there's somebody who has millions of dollars and there is somebody who owes millions of dollars. Or, we start separating this out, and we're convinced that celebrity status or these people, maybe it's even just somebody who is above you in your job, who you're convinced that they have achieved something you'll never achieve. And we start playing this comparison game, and we start separating ourselves out. And I remember, I'm going to share a story. When we did our last shoe project at Mecosta Elementary School. So we're getting ready to do our 9th shoe project next month, which I'm really excited about, where we're going to sponsor an entire elementary school, Coleman Elementary School. We're going to pay for every kid to get a brand new pair of shoes and to know that they're loved and cared for, and to just provide for their families. And it's one of my favorite things in the world. Next week, we're going to collect an offering for that. So come ready to contribute and be a part of that, because it's such an incredible opportunity. But at Mecosta, last fall, was it last fall, winter, whenever it was that we did that, I remember there was one girl who came in, and when you're in there in that room with these kids getting these shoes, it's electric. Like, they're excited. Every kid loves gifts, okay? Everyone loves gifts. And when you get a brand new pair of shoes, it's a cool feeling, and every kid in the world knows that when you get a brand new pair of tennis shoes, they are clearly faster than the last ones you owned. Like, no doubt about it. They are faster, you can jump higher, you can perform better, like you're a better athlete, you're better looking, like you're just a better person because you have this brand new pair of shoes. There's something about it that happens, and it's so fun to put that on the kids' shoes and let them light up and get like gross and sweaty in a gym with them, because you run all day, and I am not built for that anymore. But I remember there was one girl who came, she sat down, and like every teacher in the room and the principals who were there in the room, everyone was just like narrowing in, staring at this one girl. And I'm trying to figure out why. Why is this one girl getting looked at differently? And I come to find out, while we're getting shoes on, the principal pulls me aside and he's like, I got to tell you a story. This girl yesterday, or 2 days ago, came into the office with shoes that were 4 sizes too small. That was all they had. And her feet hurt, they were blistering, they were gross, they were just disgusting. They took these shoes off, they bandaged her foot and gave her a used pair of shoes that were the right size, and she was excited, and they said, just wait, there's a brand new pair of shoes coming for you in just a couple days. And so when she's there's this whole backstory that has happened that none of us knew. And she's there, she gets these shoes on, and she's running around the gym like everybody else. She's having a grand old time. Like, you see the smile, it's electric, everyone loves it. And then they leave, and the next group of kids comes in, and the principal comes back in, and he says, Dave, you won't believe what she just told me out there in the hall. I'm like, you're probably right. Kids say the darndest things. But I'm like, tell me. And so he says, she just said, and he quoted her, I finally feel like everyone else. And for one little moment, this girl who has less economic resource than anyone around her, who has felt neglected, who comes from a broken home situation, who felt like nobody was taking care of her, for one little moment, literally felt like she was on the same playing field as everyone else. And there's something really beautiful about that. There's something incredible about that moment and the ability to provide that for somebody and to let them know that they're loved. But there is something still deep down inside of each of us. There's something where we start playing this game where we separate people who are better than us, people who have achieved something we haven't, somebody who is more famous, somebody who has more money, somebody who has more status, a better job, something where we start playing out this game in our own minds, and rather than celebrating other people's victories, what we tend to look at is ourselves, and what we see in ourselves is a phrase that creeps into my head often, and I'm going to guess from yours as well, this idea that I'm not good enough. I haven't achieved that. I am not there They have gotten somewhere that I have never gotten. Or we even look in this series, this God of the Underdog series, and we're talking about characters in the Bible who have done incredible things, but have really, like, it's crazy how God took an underdog and did something world-changing through them. And we look at those things, and we are the underdog in the story often because our thought is, well, they have done something incredible. They have changed the world. They've rewritten history, and I am just me. I am not good enough. Like, somebody should continue to change the world because our world is still messed up and broken, and we all need help, and we need the love of Jesus in this world, but I'm not good enough for that. And we look at these biblical celebrities, the people who have big names in the Bible, who we hear their stories. Maybe you grew up hearing their stories in a church. Maybe you've never heard them before. We're all going to get on the same page today, and we're going to talk about one of those biblical celebrities, and it's a dude by the name of Moses. And Moses, if you grew up in the church, is a very familiar name. It is very easy to list off Moses' credits, like to look up his celebrity, biblical celebrity IMDb, and just list off all of the cool things Moses did. Like Moses parted the Red Sea with a stick in his hand. That's a pretty big deal. Moses freed all of the Israelites from Egyptian captivity through 10 plagues that just changed the course of history. He went up on a mountain and he met God face to face. In fact, so much face to face that when he came down, his face was glowing, and people got scared by that he had to put a veil over his face. I can't say the same for me. Sometimes I veil my face, but it's to protect you from other things that you don't want to see. Or Moses has done some stuff like he went up on a mountain and he came down with 2 iPads or tablets with the 10 Commandments on them. He's the 10 Commandments guy. Like, how do you call that dude an underdog? That's a big part of biblical history. He is a big deal. But he was an underdog. And I want to tell you the story behind that and the story of what led to this moment, because it's going to change the way you look at Moses. And I hope that it changes the way you can look at yourself as a result too. Because when Moses was born to a Hebrew woman in Israelite captivity. The Egyptians they have all the Israelites enslaved. And they're treating them poorly. It's just bad. Pharaoh gets so upset and so intimidated by these people that he decides there's too many of them. We need to thin it out. So any male under the age of 2 is a goner. And as it turns out, when Moses was born, he was less than 2 years old. It's just how it works. And so he is born in a time where all the babies are getting killed off, and his mom is so scared about that, doesn't want this baby to die, that she builds this basket, and she puts a baby in the basket and sends him down the river and hopes that somebody will pick him up and take care of him. That's a pretty desperate thing to do. That is his childhood. So let's go ahead and look at Moses as a guy with a list of credits, or Moses as an underdog, like we started somewhere here. And so he's on this river floating, and this lady picks him up, and the lady happens to be Pharaoh's daughter. And so he is raised in Pharaoh's house. He's taken care of. He's given all the luxuries of life. And in fact, when he's found, she's like, well, there's a baby. Somebody's got to nurse the baby. Do we have a nurse somewhere? And in an only God sort of way, the woman who gets hired to nurse this baby is Moses' mom. And so she gets hired, and she gets to take care of this baby and raise her baby in this home of somebody else, and the baby's safe and protected. And then one day, when Moses grows up, he witnesses an Egyptian badly mistreating a Hebrew man, and he gets upset, really upset. Like, there's injustice. He knows there's something wrong with it. He knows his heritage. He knows what's going on, and he saw it happen. He gets disgusted. He looks around. Nobody here? Okay, cool. And he kills the dude. Moses, your biblical celebrity, killed the dude. And then, because he gets scared, he goes and runs in hiding for 40 years. He decides, well, I don't want to get caught. My hands are clearly dirty. I'm just going to go disappear. For 40 years, disappears. And that's where we pick up today's story. A man who is a celebrity, but he's also a murder fugitive. So if you see him on Dateline NBC, Unsolved Mysteries, any of those things, it was Moses. Here's the story. We're in Exodus. It's the second book of the Bible. If you want to just start, flip open on the left. One book in. Exodus is our book. In chapter 3, this is what it says. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. This is a land Moses was familiar with. He walked these grounds all the time, taking care of sheep, walking around, just walking through the wilderness. This was Moses, hanging out. There an angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. That would get my attention. Moses saw that the bush was on fire and it did not burn up. And because Moses is a very, very deep thinker, he thought, well, I'll go over and see this strange sight, why the bush doesn't burn up. This is where I can relate to Moses, because I'm like, that's not a really deep thought. Like, yeah, that's literally what's happening. I guess I'll go see it. And then the Lord came. When he saw that Moses was over there to look, God called to him from within the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And Moses says, new phone, who dis? No, he says, here I am. Here I am. That would have freaked me out. Okay, I've been running for years, and now God's talking to me in a bush, or I don't know it's God at this point. I just know that the bush is on fire, and the fire is talking. Jay Leno's face in the hair, just talking, okay? It's just going. I don't know what to do with this. And that's where Moses finds himself. I don't know what to do with this. And God says, listen, Moses, the Israelites are in captivity. You know it. I know it. There's trouble in paradise. We know something needs to happen. You ready? I've got something for you. And Moses is like, I'm sorry, what's going on? And God says this, and I'm in verse 10. And if you write in your Bible, I write in mine, I underline things, I write notes, I do whatever. This is a key phrase. So now go. God has just said, we know there's an issue. So now go. This is how he starts his conversation with Moses. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, and he said this, I'm sorry, what? Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? I think you got the wrong guy. I am the murder fugitive, basket boy. Like, this is me. And God meets him here in this moment. And Moses, I don't know if you've ever felt God tugging on your heart, like, man, you need to go do this thing. Or you need to give toward this, or you need to just step out and say this. And your first thought is, yeah, you got the wrong guy. Yeah, that's not me. Like, that's a good thing, but not for me. Somebody else should do this. That is an injustice in this world. That is, my family does need this, or this neighbor does need help, or this workplace needs Jesus. But not me. Somebody needs to do that. I don't know if you've ever felt that way, or you felt like your insecurities just hold you back because, yes, somebody needs to do that, but I don't have what it takes. I'm not good enough for that. Somebody really should step in and do this, but it's not me. I'm not ready. I'm not your guy. Find someone else, which is a really bold thing to say to God. But we do it. We do that. God, okay, that's nice, but somebody else. This is Moses' response. Exodus 4:1. Moses answered, well, what if they don't believe me or listen to me or say the Lord did not appear to you? So he comes back with excuses. He comes first with questions. Then he comes with excuses of, okay, you said that you're God. You said to tell them that God sent me. In fact, like you told me all these things to say, but what if they don't even believe me? And God says, fine, let me humor you in this moment because he knows our humanity. And he says, this stick you have in your hand, this rod to help you walk around, throw it on the ground. Okay, so he threw it on the ground and it turned into a snake. That would have freaked me out. Snakes are gross. They're wrong. They're everything that's wrong in this world. They're slimy. They're nasty. They're just wrong. They belong on the ground or under it, like forever. And so there's this snake going around, and he's scared, and he probably wet his tunic and needed to change. And this is just how it plays out in my mind, okay, as I'm watching the story unfold. And God says, now you see the snake, reach down, grab his tail. No thanks. But he does. He reaches down, he grabs the tail, it turns right back into a stick. Well, that's kind of cool. God says, hold on, I got one better. He says, put your hand in your cloak. Puts his hand in his cloak. Comes out, it's white and leprous, just covered in disease. Well, that's a new one, God. Like, what am I going to do with this one? That's a cool party trick. Like, what? But David Blaine will use this someday, and it'll be awesome. And then he put it back in, and it came back out, and it's healed. He's like, okay, like what? Snake, hand. And if it were me in this moment and I were Moses, I would have done this like 4 or 5 more times. Like, now you see it, now you don't. Now you see it, now you don't. And then you pull it out, and there's flowers, and then there's tickets to that thing you love, and the thing you love is turned into diamonds. Do you remember those commercials, the Old Spice commercials? Look back at your man. Now look at me. Those were good. That's what's happening in this moment. Then God says, there's still more. Go get a jar. Get water from the Nile. So he goes, he gets a jar of water from the Nile. He pours it on the ground, and that water turns into blood. And there's 3 signs that God just shows him. Okay, if they don't believe you with your words, ta-da, And Moses is like, okay, I get it. I see what you're doing. That being said, he goes on and he says a phrase that if you've been here for all 3 weeks prior to this week, if not, go back and listen to him because I love this series. But he says a phrase that almost every one of them says when God says go. Moses said to the Lord, pardon your servant, Lord. Excuse me. And he says this, I've never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you've spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. In this moment, it's really easy to just keep reading and going, okay, well, Moses is like, well, I'm not a good speaker. But this is like a serious thing. This is Moses listing his insecurities on the table. He is saying, I have a speech problem. I stutter. I can't get words out. I am not very good at the English, which he wasn't because it wasn't invented yet. But let that one sink in for a minute. I'm not a good speaker. Like, you're telling me I need to go lead people. You're telling me I need to go lead the charge. I'm going to go save the Israelite people, but I can't even get a sentence out, God. Like, I cannot do this. He just lists. This is heart-wrenching for him to list this out. This is not just a casual phrase of, yeah, I don't want to do this. This is like, I am not good enough. I am not your guy. I can't even put 2 words together. I can't do it. The Lord said to him, who gave human beings their mouths? And who makes them deaf or mute? Or who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? And underline this again. Now go. Now go. I will help you speak and I will teach you what to say. I don't know about you, but I come to the table in my own leadership, in my own life, with a whole pile of insecurities. I am not slow of speech. Sometimes I speak too quickly. But I come with my own baggage. I come with my own insecurities. I come with my own backstory. I come with my own list of reasons why I'm not good enough and why God shouldn't and couldn't use me, because there are better candidates at the table and there's somebody else who is more qualified than me and there is somebody else who is better equipped than me to do this. In fact, if I'm being real and honest, there are some days where I look at myself and I'm standing in my office and I'm about to meet with somebody about some really deep stuff that people go through. And I'm just thinking to myself, what in the world do I have to offer in this moment? I am too smart. I am too good looking. I am too compassionate. They won't even be able to relate to me. No, that's not what I think. I, in fact, think I don't really have anything to bring to the table here. I don't know what to do with this. I am not qualified for this. I don't feel good enough for this. I don't have the right words to say. And in fact, I was reading through the entire Bible in a year in 2021. I was doing a reading program with that, and I wrote down literally, it's right here in my margins, right on this text. I said, this is for me. I wrote it right after the words, now go, I will help you speak and teach you what to say. Because there are some moments in my own insecurities where I get in my way and I say, I am not good enough for this. I am not qualified for this. I am not a world changer. I am just me here. And I have to remind myself that God has said, go. I will tell you what to say. I will lead you. I will care for you. I will guide you. And I have to remind myself of that. And I have to remind myself that God is, in fact, bigger than my insecurities. And not only is God bigger than my insecurities, God knew your flaws from the very beginning, and he has never been slowed down by you then, and he will not be slowed down by you now. He is not intimidated by your flaws. He is not slowed down by your work. He's not looking at you going, well, you're right, there is a better candidate. He's looking at you going, I knew you when I created you. I knew you when you were in your mother's womb. I know you now. I know everything you struggle with. I know your faults. I know your imperfections. I know all the ways that you actually are good enough, and I'm still choosing to call you. You. He's not limited by you. See, what we have to do, if you're a follower of Jesus, this is essential. And if you are not a follower of Jesus, you're just asking questions, you're seeking this out, you're in a great place. I'm glad that you guys are here. I want you to know a resource that's available to you through the life-saving work of Jesus. You can find your confidence in God's abilities, not your own. You're going to bring faults to the table. You're going to bring flaws to the table. There are genuinely ways that you are not good enough, all of us. But the God who created you is good enough. And he has all of those things. And it's never been, in Moses' story, it was never, like you look at his list, his credits, his IMDb, and you look at all the cool things he did, none of those have anything to do with Moses and his abilities. Not a one. Not a one. It was a dude who was willing and who heard God calling and went. And God did these things. And now we give Moses all these credits for all the cool things he did, but it's really a guy who was available and a guy who was willing to say, God, this world needs to be changed. I know it, you know it, let's go. And God did the work. God does incredible things. It's his abilities. It's never been about ours. See, but even before that happened, what I love is that Moses finishes off his plea in Exodus 4:13. Moses says, pardon your servant, Lord, clear as day. Please send someone else. I get it. I can relate to the dude. But you know what God did not do? He didn't change his mind. He didn't go, you know what, those are some very compelling points, Moses. You're not very good at speaking. And that hand thing, it is kind of, a little lame. But, no. Go. I'm going to tell you what to do. I'm going to tell you what to say. You just go. That is what you need. And in fact, you're worried about not being able to speak well, fine. Here's a dude, your brother Aaron. He's really good at talking. He's real good. Okay? Bring him with you. And he gives Aaron as a mouthpiece or an interpreter for him. So Moses can take his time saying whatever needs to get said, and Aaron can make it sound purty. He's a speechwriter. He's an interpreter. I read creatively when I read. Sometimes it's dangerous. But when I picture Aaron interpreting, for some reason my mind went to interpretive dance. And so I'm just picturing Moses like delivering the 10 commandments down from the mountain. He's like, all right, don't kill the dude. And here's Aaron in the back going, like just acting it out. It's probably not what happened, but I wasn't there. I can't say. Maybe it did. Just saying. One of my favorite things about the Christian faith, one of my favorite things is that, yes, we're not good enough, but yes, we have a God who loves us, who is good enough. And not only is it about something so much bigger than ourselves, it's about the fact that we have never, ever been meant to or had to do this alone. Ever. We may not have it all together, but we do not have to do it alone. Ever. My team that I work with here at this church is freaking amazing. Like, they are so good at what they do. And I'll celebrate them next week at our anniversary, and we'll have a whole lot of fun with it. But they make this thing far better than I ever could. And they bring some skills to the table that I have never once possessed in my life. And I love that. And this last week has been ridiculous for me. I, for some reason, decided it'd be fun to roll around in a batch of poison ivy. My body didn't like that as much. Don't recommend it. 0 stars. I don't know what happened. I don't know where it happened. But this last week, I was almost completely out, just knocked up on Benadryl and steroids. So if I start busting like through this shirt, you'll know why. It's not because of Planet Fitness. It's just the juice. Anyway, that's weird. I'm too good looking. But we never skipped a beat this week because the team knows what to do. They're good. They're incredible at what they do. Lives have been changed because of the work that's happened here. And it happens here not because one person is standing up and saying, here's the Jesus we know and love. This is happening because the entire church rallies around and knows the Jesus that we love and is willing to serve and is willing to come together and is willing to say, you know what, if it means buying a pair of shoes to bless a kid to help them know and experience the love of Jesus, then that's what I'm going to do. And we all pitch in and we all serve. And God could have chosen anyone in that moment to save the Israelites from the Egyptians, but he picked Moses. And God could choose anyone now, and some of us are in this room secretly hoping that he will choose someone else. But he's picking you and me and us together, collectively, to change our community, to change our world, to step out and to share the love of Jesus in such a way that lets somebody know that there is a God who loves them and a God who is for them. And if we continue to live with underdog excuses, we're going to continue to limit ourselves in what God is able to do around us and through us and what we're able to witness firsthand that God's just ready to do. He's ready to work. So now go. So now go. I saw this tweet this last week from a teacher. I love this. I have no idea who this guy is. It was shared on social media. I'm glad I ran across it. I am not the best teacher I know. I'm not in the top 5 or even the top 50, but I do know that I'm where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to be doing, building strong relationships with kids, and using my voice for good. I belong right here. if we can get ourselves to a place where we understand not only has God called us to where we are, but he is behind us and he is for us, my goodness, the ability that God equips us with, that's right there available to you, the Spirit of God living in you to help you move and breathe and change the world around you. It's incredible, God's strength that can fuel us. And here's what I need you to know as we end this series and as we take this thing home. Please hear this. If you write down anything, if you capture anything, hear this. God knows your excuses, and he still calls you to change the world. So when we hide behind these underdog excuses, when we hide behind all of these reasons, whether it was week 1, 2, 3, or 4, or any other excuse that you didn't hear me say over the last few weeks, but you know that you bring to the table, when we hide behind those, we're doing nothing. We're doing nothing to advance God's kingdom, to be a part of his movement that he's called us to. God wants to use us, to move through us. He's calling us all to the table. He's calling us. I read a statement this last week that just changed things for me. It says, our imperfections point to nothing short of a need for a perfect Savior. Yes, you're not good enough. Yes, we all have excuses. Yes, all of these things. But a perfect Savior is what makes us strong. Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians, he says, God says, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. So now I'm glad to boast about my weakness so that the power of Christ may work through me. David wrote in Psalm 27, the Lord is my light and my salvation, so why should I tremble? The Lord is my fortress, protecting me from danger, so why should I be afraid? We're going to go into a moment of communion together as a church. If you're at home, grab some bread, grab some juice, grab anything that's handy. It's never been about the physical elements. It's about what it represents. This is about the fact that Jesus died on the cross. His body and his blood were broken for you and for me to make up for our lack of ability, to make up for our lack of perfection. The only perfect person who has ever lived sacrificed his life for us so that the power of Christ, the power of God may live and work and breathe and be active through us. So we're going to have a moment where you can come up and you can grab some bread, grab some juice, take it back to your seat or wherever you're at home. And thank God for the gift of his Spirit that he left with us. And thank God for the opportunity to serve and to use your talents and your abilities and your flaws to accomplish God's work. So let's ask God to move. And I'll leave you with one statement as I pray. So now, go. Let's pray. God, thank you for today. Thank you for this opportunity to serve you and to love you and to represent you with all that we do. God, I pray as a church, Lord, that you would never help us to lose sight of what you're doing in our midst, the incredible ways that you have been blessing and stirring and doing life-changing work over these last 9 years. God, I pray in each of us that you would stir in our hearts the calling that you have for us, that you would lead us exactly where you need us to be. God, if we've been running for years, those in this room and those watching online who have been running, God, I pray that you would turn their heart back to you and that they would see that you are there for them. You've never left them. God, you love them. God, I pray that this is a moment where we can return to you and hear your voice and your calling once again. God, for those who have been walking with you day by day, Lord, continue to affirm our calling, continue to speak that into us. And for those who are just waiting to hear your voice and your lead, God, I pray that you lead them and guide them and help them to change this world by the way that we love the people around us. I ask your blessing in Jesus' name.